This is the Satisfactory Academic Progress Workshop. By show of hands, does anybody know what the Satisfactory Academic Progress policy means, what it is? Anybody have a guess? An idea? Nothing. Okay. How many people receive financial aid in this room? By a show of hands. Okay, just about everybody, even if you didn't raise your hand. So when you clicked that little button, I accept, do you know what you clicked? You said, not only do I accept the terms and conditions of financial aid, but I understand them. That's this. That's your satisfactory academic progress. So we have a problem. If you're accepting these terms and conditions, you're stating that you understand what terms you are held to in order to continue to receive financial aid. If you are unaware, that's what we're going to talk about today, what it is and what you are expected to maintain as a student receiving financial aid. So the federal definition, we're just going to call it SAP, Satisfactory Academic Progress, because that's a mouthful. So SAP. The federal definition is like 5 pages. We don't have time to go over 5 pages of a federal form. So this is a condensed version of that form. I'm not going to read it because we're all college students, so I know all of you can read it. In a nutshell, what it's saying is these 2 things. There's 2 parts to SAP, 2 very important things. The first one is this 2.0 GPA. Now, this is a cumulative GPA. So cumulative means everything that you've ever attempted since you have been at Oxnard, Ventura, or Moorpark College, because we're one district. So everything will show on your transcript from all 3 of those schools. So 2.0, if you leave today and remember nothing else, there's 2 things I want you to remember. One of them is a 2.0 GPA. That's a C average. So a lot of students are confused by this because maybe they took classes 10 years ago and maybe they didn't do so well in those classes. Well, those still count in that 2.0 GPA. So even if you did really well 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or not so well, it's going to count. And why do we do that? A lot of students get very upset. Why do I have to count those grades from 1999, 1989? Well, 2 reasons. If you had passed all of those classes, wouldn't you want them to count? If you got straight A's 10 years ago, and then we turned around and said, oh, we can't count those anymore because they're 10 years old, you'd be upset, right? I'd be upset if I took Math 14 and somebody told me I didn't count anymore. So it's the same thing. It's got to work both ways. The other reason, anybody ever bought a car? Yeah, they run your credit, right? When you go to buy a car, they want to see your credit history. So if you go to buy a car and they run your credit and they see that you've had 3 car repossessions, you maxed out 10 credit cards and never paid on any of them, you're going to have a tough time getting that car. Same idea. Your record follows you. Your academic record, same thing. Your credit record, same thing. So that's why, even if it's 10 years old, 15, 20, I've seen grades on transcripts from 1985. It counts. Everything counts. So keep that in mind. The second thing is this 70% completion rate. What does that mean? That means that you have a certain number of units that you've attempted versus units that you've earned. Attempted units are A, B, C, D, F, W, incomplete, basically anything that comes on your transcript, whether you've completed it or not. So that is our attempted. Then what you have on the other side of that is what you have earned. A, B, C, D, complete, pass, those are earned units. I guess it should be this way. So we take your earned, we divide it into your attempted, and it's going to give us some percent. That percentage needs to be above a 70%. So the other number I want you to remember, 70%. These 2 things. If you leave today and remember nothing else, remember that. you need to maintain a 70% completion rate. So for example, if I'm enrolled at Oxnard and I take 12 units, about 4 classes, right? I only complete 3 classes. 9. 9 into 12 is what? Somebody? Anybody? 75%, right? What is that? This person's okay. They're good, as long as they're at a 2.0. The thing about this is, you have to meet both of these standards. You can't say, oh, I'll just get a 4.0, but I'll drop a lot of my classes, because W's don't go into your GPA. Everybody knows that, right? A W does not affect your GPA, but it affects this number. Because that W goes as an attempted class if that W appears on your transcript. So I see students who maybe have a 4.0 GPA, which is great, but a 32% completion rate, because they're attempting 12 units and maybe only completing 1 or 2 classes, but they're getting A's. So keep that in mind. You have to maintain both of these, the 2.0 and the 70%. The last part of SAP, which when I first started working in financial aid, it took me a really long time to grasp this idea, but it's not really that complicated. 150%, you have 150% of your program length. How long does it take to receive an associate's degree? How many units? Nobody knows how many units it takes to receive an associate's degree. 60, thank you. 60 units. We are a 2-year institution, so we only offer associates, transfer, certificate. You cannot receive a bachelor's degree here. About another 60 units to transfer. Not another, but you need at least 60 units to transfer. So 150% of 60. Well, 100% of 60 is 60, right? 50% is 30. When you add that up, you get 90 units. So as a student at Oxnard College receiving financial aid, you get 90 units to complete your educational goal. You get the 60 you need to transfer, get your associates, all of those, plus an additional 30. So this is 90 attempted. 90 attempted units, not completed. Sometimes students are confused. They say, well, I've only earned 35 units, but they've attempted 110. They're no longer eligible for aid once you exceed this number. That 90 units, once you've exceeded it, you're no longer eligible to receive financial aid at that point, at Oxnard at least. So does everybody understand this? If there are questions, stop me now. Okay. So warning, ignore this side. Pay attention to this side. You are on financial aid warning for one of 2 reasons. You are either below a 2.0 or below the 70% completion rate. In some cases, it would be both. But you are in here for one of those 2 reasons. So why do we have this rule? Why do we have satisfactory academic progress? Couple of things. Well, one, because the federal government says we have to. Everybody knows there's a budget crisis, right? Feds are out of money. The states, negative money. So, anybody work? Work, yeah, okay. Does anybody know where your Pell Grant comes from? That big grant that the feds give out? Where it comes from, where they get that money? It comes from your tax dollars. So those of you who are working, maybe if you were working, you're planning on getting a job. Anybody who pays for anything and pays taxes, your tax dollars are paying for that Pell Grant. Do you want to be paying your tax dollars to somebody who is going to school and continually dropping out semester after semester and taking your tax dollars and going to school with it? I would hope not. Because every month when I get my paycheck and I see all those taxes they take out, hurts my heart a little bit. So I would hope you would want that money to be going to students making progress towards their educational goal. The idea behind financial aid is that it's here because school's expensive, and we realize that. So the feds say, well, we're going to help you get through school. We're going to help give you money to get you through school. And then when you get out, you get a job, and you pay taxes and help somebody else get through school. So the cycle just continues. It cycles over and over and over again. But that cycle can't continue if we're not getting through school, if we're not getting our education and going out and getting those jobs. So that's why it's there. Anybody receive a BOG fee waiver in the room? Probably most of us do. Okay, so right now if you're sitting in your chair and you're thinking, I don't know why I came, I don't know why I'm listening to this lady, I just won't get my financial aid, I'll just get my BOG and pay for everything else on my own. Well, reconsider that. The state of California is in bad, bad shape. And they're starting to think like the feds. And they're saying, okay, well, since the feds are tightening up, we're going to tighten up. So as of right now, they're in the process of trying to pass new legislation that says in order to receive your BOG, have to be meeting these standards. Because right now, if you don't, you can still get your BOG. You can still receive your BOG and not be at a 2.0, not be at a 70%. It is not tied to SAP. Well, in the next couple semesters, it might not be the case. So tuition's going up to $46 a unit in the summer. Did you guys know that? Well, now you do. $46 a unit. If you want to go full time, 2 semesters, you're looking at $1,100 in tuition. I don't have a check for $1,100 to write for tuition every couple months, or about $500 every couple months. Plus my books, plus my gas at almost $5 a gallon. So these are things to start thinking about. That is why SAP is in place. The idea is to get in and get out. Get your education and go on. So why is it important? At this point, probably a month and a half ago, everybody should have gotten an email from us that said, new regulation, you only have 6 years to receive financial aid. This is how much you've used. So before 2008, 2009, you could potentially receive financial aid forever. And students did. They hopped around from school to school to school to school to school, and they got financial aid, and they lived off of it. That was their source of income. I've seen students with $50,000, $60,000 in Pell Grant. That is free money. That is $60,000 in free money that they just were going across the country, all over the place, getting aid. So in 2008, 2009, the government said, no more. We're not doing this anymore. We got to put a limit on this. So in 2008, 2009, if you were a new financial aid recipient, you had 9 years. 9 years to receive financial aid. Anybody who had received aid before that was not held to that rule. They were what's called grandfathered in. So they were still being able to receive aid for as many years as they were in school. In December of 2011, just a couple months ago, Congress met again and said, you know what, 9 years is too much. 6 years. And nobody's grandfathered in. So what does that mean? Even if you started receiving aid in 2001 and you're attending right now, next fall you may not be eligible to receive financial aid. That means if you're at a university, you might be out. You might be out of your Pell Grant. So this concept here, it's not just 6 years. Keep that in mind. It is 12 full-time semesters. It's the equivalent of 12 full-time semesters. So if you don't go full-time, it's going to take you more than 6 years, and that's okay. Think of 1 year is 100%, okay? We look at a year, fall and spring. So each semester would be 50% if you attended full-time. So if you're attending less than full-time, obviously you get more than 6 years. Now, why does this matter? For a couple reasons. If you attended another school Charter College, ITT Tech, University of Phoenix, Northridge, Channel Islands, any other school and you received financial aid, that counts towards your lifetime. This financial aid that you're receiving here, when you transfer to Channel Islands, Northridge, anywhere that you transfer, UCSB, UCLA, this lifetime eligibility will go with you. So let's put an example up. If I'm attending in the fall, 12 units, full-time, right? I'm going to use 50%. Let's say in the spring I started working, so I couldn't go full-time anymore. So I took 6 units. That's half-time. So I'm not charged 50% anymore because I only attended half-time. I'm only charged 25%. So this student used 75% in 1 year instead of their 100%. So do you see how it can take more than 6 years if you're not attending full-time? You can attend half-time and get aid for 12 years if you attend half-time every single semester. It's based on the percentage that you have used. And if you don't know what you have used by the end of today, you will. So what does this have to do with SAP? Why do we care about this? If you're attending, let's say you went last fall and you went full-time, so you got your 50% because you went full-time. But you got 2 W's, an F, and a D. None of those units will go towards graduation, and none of those units are transferable. So you used 50% of your lifetime eligibility, and academically, you gained nothing because you didn't complete any of your units. So that's why this 600% ties with SAP. Because eventually, you're going to hit 600%, but you might not be through your academic goal yet. You might not be at a university yet because you weren't meeting your SAP standards, because you were dropping or not passing your classes. That's why this 600% is huge. 6 years is not a long time, especially if you've already been here for 2 or 3 years receiving financial aid. The average student right now is graduating in about 5 years from a university. So 2 or 3 years here, 2 or 3 years there. If you had to start at Math 9 or ESL, it's probably going to take you longer than 2 years to get out of here. Anybody want to transfer in science, engineering, nursing? Those are at least 3-year programs when you get to the university. So you want to have this free money when you get there. Because right now, at Cal State Channel Islands, I'm a student there. Full-time tuition, 1 semester, $3,300, 1 semester. Your maximum Pell Grant right now is only $27.75. So your Pell Grant is gone. Because you know you don't get a BOG at the university, right? Doesn't exist there. It's only a community college thing. So now you have to pay your tuition when you transfer. So your Pell Grant has now all gone to your tuition. But you haven't covered all of your tuition yet. You still have your $145 parking permit, your books, your gas, and it's up the hill in Camarillo. So these are things to start thinking about. You want that free money when you get there. Loans are not the worst thing in the world, student loans. My philosophy is if you're going to be in debt, might as well make it student loans. You're investing in yourself at that point. So this is really, really big for students, especially if you're in a position where you attended another school prior to coming to Oxnard. There is a way to track this on NSLDS, National Student Loan Database. It's a website. In your folder, you have I think it's pink, and it tells you how to create an account. Can I see one of those? Yeah. On the top of the form, it says Pell Grant lifetime eligibility used. It talks about what I just said, the 6 years, the 12 full-time semesters. The bottom tells you how to set up an account. This way you can track yourself as a student what you have used. I was explaining this to a student one time, and I was telling him, you know, you only have 6 years, this is how much you've used. And he looked at me and said, it doesn't matter because you guys will never know how much financial aid I got. You'll never be able to keep track of it. Well, this system does. Keeps track of any student at any institution that participates in federal aid. Loans, grants, all of that. I strongly recommend that every student create their own account so you can see where you're at. So you don't have to come in. You have the ability to do it yourself from home, from work, wherever you can. This is what the website looks like. I show you so that you feel comfortable going in, knowing it's a safe and secure website. Financial aid review, all you need is your name, your social, your PIN, the PIN you use to sign your FAFSA. And you can log in and everything will be there. In about June, you're going to get an email from the federal government explaining this. They're going to send an email blast to all financial aid recipients. So when you get it, hopefully you understand a little bit more now what is going on. And like I said, as a student, I have one of these accounts. As an administrator, we can log in and see. When you start, and if you start having to take loans out, you're going to want to keep track of those loans. Where'd they come from? How much do you owe? Is it collecting interest? When is your first payment due? All of those things are on here. So I strongly recommend that everybody does that. So back to SAP at Oxnard. Back to why you're here. At the end of the semester, we are going to review your SAP. We are going to say, are you at a 2.0? We're going to check that. Are you at a 70%? We're going to check that. If you are, you will go into a good academic standing. We're going to give you a picture of what, as a student, you look like right now. So it's going to have your information at the top, your name, your ID, your FAFSA email. If that email does not look familiar, you've never seen it, you don't use it, you don't know the password to it, please come and let us know, because that's the only email we have on file for you. That's the one you put on your FAFSA. And email is our primary form of communication. So get in the habit of at least checking it once, twice a week. The second one is the email for your portal. I know a lot of students don't use that, but we do try to send it to that email as well. The next line will tell you you are on warning, what your SAP code is. You are on financial aid warning. Your cumulative GPA is whatever that number is. Now, if that number is below 2.0, that's why you're on warning. Okay? The next line, you have attempted some amount of units. So that's this number. That's everything that you've ever tried to complete, regardless of whether you passed it or not. The line after that, you've earned A, B, C, or D, complete, pass. That's this number. That's how many you have earned. That very next line is going to give you a percentage. That is what your completion rate is. If you are below a 70%, that number here, that's why you're on warning. So if I just went through all that stuff and you still could not figure out why you were sitting in the room, I hope at this point you know. By looking at that form, it should tell you why you're on warning. We have to take into account your entire academic history. Everything that appears on your transcript, we have to take into account. It's like your credit. If you mess up when you're 19 years old, that's still going to affect you sometime down the line if you max out 6 credit cards. Your credit's going to strongly be affected by that. It's the same idea. So the next line will be your major. We'll talk about your major in just a second. Your educational goal. So if you want to transfer and it doesn't say transfer, it's not the end of the world. It's okay. But you should keep your educational goal up to date. Do you want to receive your AA and transfer? Transfer without an AA? AA and no transfer? The next line, you are enrolled in this amount of units for this current semester, plus what you have already attempted. This is by the end of the semester. These are going to be your attempted units. If that number is over 90, you have exceeded your maximum time frame of financial aid. If it's not near 90, you're still okay. for that aspect of SAP. So does everybody understand what their form is telling them? What their SAP code looks like right now? So your major has to be something that Oxnard College offers. We don't offer a degree in nursing. You cannot graduate from Oxnard College with a diploma that says nursing, because we are not accredited to offer a nursing degree. Ventura and Moorpark are, but we are not. So it has to be something that that Oxnard offers a degree in. If you want to transfer to a nursing program, that's okay. You can put biology, chemistry, general studies. Once you are in that nursing program, change it to nursing. So you want to keep your majors updated. If you have gone in since your first check and changed your major to undecided, you need to fix it today, or your disbursement will not go out next week. The system will not pay you on an undecided major. So if that's you, keep that in mind if you've changed your major to undecided. So like I said, at the end of the semester, we're going to go in and we're going to check. Have you met your 2.0 and your 70%? If you have, like I said, you go into a good academic standing. If you have not, you are suspended from financial aid. So if you have your license suspended, legally, what does that mean? Can't drive, right? So if you have your financial aid suspended, what does that mean? Well, you can go to school, you just can't receive aid. Now, I say that for this reason. Last semester we started doing these workshops, and I would tell students that. And I thought it was very clear that suspension meant you were not eligible for aid. Well, students were coming in the beginning of the spring semester and saying, why didn't I get my financial aid? I don't understand. I'm suspended. I don't understand why I didn't get it. Suspension means you are not eligible to receive aid at that point. You have to complete an appeal. You have to do a Satisfactory Academic Progress appeal. So when I would tell them that, they would say, no, I don't want to do the appeal. I just want to receive my aid. Okay, well, that's like me telling the electricity company, I don't really want to pay my bill, but can you just turn my lights on? Because I don't want to sit in the dark anymore. Can't do one without the other. If you are suspended, you have to appeal in order to receive aid. It is your choice whether you want to appeal or not. You absolutely don't have to. But if you choose not to, you're not eligible. And that's what this is here. What happens if I don't want to appeal? That's fine. You don't have to. But you won't be eligible for the aid. You will only be eligible for the BOG fee waiver. And we all know, based on what I said earlier, that might change. So things to start thinking about. You get to the end of the semester, you don't meet your SAP term, so you're going to appeal. You have an appeal form. It's got all this writing on the front and these boxes in the back. So what is an appeal? It's a two-part process. It is a letter as well as an educational plan from a counselor. So with the letter, let's start with that. The first question on that appeal form says, what were the circumstances beyond your control? Beyond your control is the key there, that led to you not completing your classes. Okay, work, childcare, lack of transportation, my teacher hates me, I didn't know I had to go to class every day. Those are not things beyond your control. Why do I say that? Work. Let's start with work. If you are in a situation, which most of us are in this economy, where you have to work and go to school, understandable, happens a lot. However, you have responsibility as a student to take that into consideration. If you work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, probably shouldn't sign up for classes from 12 to 3 on Wednesday, unless your boss is going to allow you to go. But that's something that you have to have worked out before the semester starts. That's where your responsibility as a student. The institution carries some, and as a student, you carry some too. So work, not necessarily out of your control. If you're working full-time, might not be the best time to take 18 units. Tough to do. 12 units is a full load. So That's why work sometimes is not necessarily beyond your control. Childcare, if you have children, by the end of the semester you will still have children. So in between there, who's going to watch them? Who's going to pick them up from school, take them to soccer practice, make them dinner, help them with their homework? Those are things you have to think about, because as a parent, that's your first responsibility. Now you're a student as well. Balancing that. It's a tough act. On top of that work, we realize it's difficult, but think about these things when you're registering for your classes. My teacher hates me. Just don't write that. Lack of transportation, that falls under that responsibility thing again. You got to know, how are you going to get to school in the morning, in the evening, in the middle of the day? If you're living with mom and dad and you're sharing a car with mom, okay, mom, how are we going to do this? How are we going to figure this out? That's where you carry that responsibility. That is something you have to manage on your own, figuring that out. Time management, balancing your schedule. So things beyond your control. Your child became ill. You became ill. Broke your leg, broke your arm, got in a car accident, somebody passed away. Those are things that I hope nobody plans for on a daily basis. They happen and we have to deal with them, and that's okay. Those are things that are beyond your control that might cause you to miss class for things that you have no choice. If you're in the hospital, you're in the hospital. Your child is in the hospital, you have to be there. Those are things. So explain these circumstances in detail. Detail is not 3 sentences. I have had students try to turn in an appeal to me that was this long. I will take it if that is what you want to turn in. I will not deny it, but I can almost guarantee you that appeal is going to be denied. We want to know what happened. We're not asking for a dissertation, an MLA paper with citations, and we're not looking for all title page and all that. We just want a good explanation. The last bullet here says, provide documentation to support what you're saying. If you're going to tell me your child was in the hospital for 2 months, but you have not one medical bill, a doctor's note, anything, difficult. We're not accusing anybody of saying, oh, you're making that up, because I would hope and pray nobody would ever make something like that up. But as an institution, we are audited by the federal government every year. And we have to present appeals. And we have to be able to tell them why we approved them. Well, we approved it because they provided this documentation to support what they were saying. And if we can't justify it, we're in trouble. Big trouble. You don't want to be in trouble with the feds. So that's why we ask for documentation. Now, if you're in a position where you attended 10 or 15 years ago, maybe you don't have that doctor's bill. Maybe you don't have that documentation. But you have to explain that. Because when you turn in your appeal, myself or somebody at the counter, we're going to review it, we're going to look at it, and then it's going to go to the review committee. You are not there. It's not an interview one-on-one process. So whatever is not answered is just not answered. And you don't want to have any unanswered questions in your appeal letter. You want them to understand everything about your academic history. Why were you unable to complete those classes? Why did you pass one class but not the other 2? What happened? That's kind of what we're looking for. The last part of the letter, I feel, is the most important. Because everything that has happened has happened. Not going to go back and fix it. Can't. But what is different now? What have you done about your circumstances that have changed? Are you still ill? Is your child still ill? Do you have a way to get to school? Are you taking less units? Because sometimes it's not this big dramatic story that you were in the hospital. Sometimes it's that you took too many units. So what have you done about it? I work full-time and it's hard for me to go to school full-time, so now I'm only taking 2 classes. And that's going to help me focus more on those 2 classes. Sometimes that's all it is. But what about your situation has changed? What plan have you put in place as a student to ensure that you're going to succeed in your classes? That is the most important. Be as specific, be as detailed. Do you have a study group? Do you have a tutor? What do you have to help you succeed? And sometimes students say, like, for me, math is awful. Math is not my thing. I don't do well in it. And I know that's the case for a lot of students, or English. So maybe taking math or English by itself is your plan, because that way you only have to worry about that class. Maybe that's your plan. So keep that in mind. Keep those things when you're writing your letter. What are you going to do to succeed? The second part is your educational plan. So the back of that form with the boxes on it, your counselor is going to fill that part out. They're going to list all of the classes you need to either transfer, get your associates, whatever your goal is going to be, whatever you want to do. So how do I know if I need to see a counselor? If you are a student at any school, you should see a counselor. I don't care if you have a 4.0 and you've never dropped a class in your life. I don't care if you've never passed a class in your life. You should see a counselor. That's what they're there for. That's why they're there to help you. So go and utilize them. Make them earn their paycheck. So why? Why go to a counselor? Their job is to tell you what you need to get where you want to go. One of my good friends was going to transfer, and she was in the spring semester. She was going to transfer in the fall. So she was taking 12 units, and she thought she was in this class that she didn't need. I hate this class. I'm not going to go anymore. I don't want to take it. So she dropped it. And I kept telling her, are you sure you can drop it? Are you sure? Yeah, I don't need it. I don't need it. Well, remember, you need 60 units to transfer. You have to have 60 transferable units. So she dropped it. And when she went to register at Northridge, they kept saying, you have a hold on your account. You have a hold on your account. So she finally called and they said, we're waiting because you only have 59 units. We're waiting for something that says you have 60 units. Well, she didn't have 60 because she dropped that class. So they took away her admission and said, you can apply in a year when you have 60 units. Because she didn't want to spend 30 minutes sitting with a counselor. She would have known she couldn't drop the class. So I've seen students miss graduation by half a unit, 1 unit. And that would just be devastating to me, to be that close and to know you're 1 unit away because you didn't maybe go take the time to see a counselor. It's really, really, really important. It's a vital part of getting through school. Before you go and see a counselor, a few things. What do you want to do? Counselors were telling us that students were getting there and the counselor would say, great, do you want to transfer? I don't care. What do you want to major in? I don't know. What do you want to do in 10 years? Something will come up. Do you know what you want to be? No. What do you like? Difficult on the counselor's end. They don't know where to guide you if you have not thought about these things. Maybe you want to be a teacher, but you don't know what you need to get there. That's okay. But maybe you want to be a doctor. Maybe you want to be in the dental hygiene program, but you don't know what steps it takes to get there. We're not asking you to have your whole life figured out, but have an idea. I'm kind of interested in this and this or that. What is it? Think about, I'm really good at art. I like sports. I like science. Whatever it is, those are things to think about before you get in to see a counselor, because their job is to help you and guide you, but guide you. So you got to lead the way. So keep that in mind. If you're a part of EOPS or CARE, CalWORKS, go to your counselor that you are assigned there. You're extremely lucky to be a part of those specialized programs, so take advantage of them. For EOPS and CalWORKS, this will count as one of your visits throughout the semester if you go and you get your ed plan done. So keep that in mind. Has anybody ever tried to go to counseling like the first 3 weeks of school? Last 3 weeks of school? It's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. And this semester, counseling's not doing appointments. It's on a walk-in basis only. So if you wait till, let's see, we get out about the middle of May. If you wait till the first week of May to go see a counselor, unless you have like 3 hours on your hand, I would go now. Go now, get your ed plan done, and then you just tuck it away. You tuck it away till it's time to turn in your appeal. Until your grades post for this semester is when you can turn in your appeal. But then, once the ed plan's done, the letter's on you whenever you want to write that letter. But you don't want to wait. You do not want to wait to get in to see a counselor. And I know they are not here in some portion of the summer. So keep that in mind. If you're on the bubble, if you don't know if you're going to have to appeal, I'll tell you right now, if your percentage is like below a 50 or below, you're almost guaranteed to have to appeal. It's very hard in one semester to get that number above a 70. So that's why we're telling you now. So you have from now till whenever you plan on attending again, whether that be summer or fall, to get that appeal turned in. So I put this up here so you go early. Go early and just get your ed plan done. Get it out of the way. And tuck it away in your backpack binder at home somewhere. When you're ready to turn it in, you can bring it in. So what happens? You turn in your appeal. You're going to get your ed plan. You're going to write your letter. You're going to come to our office. Somebody at the front counter is going to take that appeal and they're going to read it. They might say, great, we'll notify you of the decision. They also might say, hey, do you mind explaining this a little bit more? For some reason, I don't know why, that tends to really, really, really offend students when we ask them, hey, can you explain this? Why? Why do you want me to, what's wrong with this? No one's judging anybody's writing, anything like that. We just want you to explain. We know what the committee is looking for. So it's to help you. It is not to come down on you. And we will let you handwrite it right then and there. Add whatever it might be. Can you explain this a little bit more? Or whatever it might be. What is your plan? Explain your plan a little bit more. And it's not to offend anybody. It's to say, it's to your benefit. Hey, we know what they're looking for. It's like having a cheat sheet on your test. When the teacher lets you fill out like a little note card, that's what it is. Wear your little note card before you turn in that appeal. Because once that appeal has been turned in, it's been turned in. And once the decision is made, that decision is final. There is no, but I forgot to add this. I forgot. I didn't know I had to put all that in there. It's a final decision. So you want to put everything out there. So you're going to turn in your appeal. We're going to send it. It's going to get reviewed. You're going to get an email that says one of two things. Your appeal has been approved. Your appeal has been denied. If your appeal has been denied, you are not eligible for aid that semester. You will be eligible when you meet the 2.0 and when you meet the 70%. Now, at the end of that current semester, whatever it is, whether you attend summer or fall, you can reappeal. You can say, look, I passed all my classes. And this is what I did to do that. You can reappeal. If you are approved, you are eligible to receive aid. Again, you are held to another set of standards, which we're not going to get into because we could be here all day talking about this. But keep that in mind. If you are approved, you do have to come back in person. You will have to sign your approval letter and sign a couple of other forms. You will remain on what's called probation until your appeal until you're at the 70% and you're at a 2.0. Now, like I said, you don't have to appeal if you don't want to. It's a choice that you get to make. But keep that in mind. We talked about if your appeal is approved, you are placed on financial aid probation. So keep that in mind. Just to kind of wrap things up, financial aid's a long process. Nothing really happens overnight in our office. We've tried to really expedite things. You can go on your portal now and do it that way. But it is still a very manual process. Anytime appeals have to be approved, we had 900 students last semester on warning. 900, almost 1,000. We're at like 970 something. So of those 900, the 600 that had to appeal, those have to be manually reviewed. Your grades are manually checked. At the end of the semester, we go in and we check. There are almost 4,000 students receiving a Pell Grant on Oxnard College. So it's still a very manual process. A student called me one time and said, when am I going to get my financial aid? And I was like, oh, well, when did you apply? I just submitted my FAFSA 10 minutes ago. I'm like, you got weeks before you're going to hear anything. And the point of that is do everything early. Do your 12-13 FAFSA now, because your 12-13 FAFSA is good for next fall. Don't wait until the week of school to do your FAFSA, because it doesn't happen overnight. And you don't want to be in that situation where school's going to start, you don't have your money, you don't have your books, you don't have anything you need. And if you have to appeal, keep in mind it can take 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes less, sometimes more. So turn it in early. As soon as your grades post in spring, you can turn in your appeal, whether it be for summer or for fall, as soon as your spring grades are available. So turn it in. Don't wait till the end of summer to bring it in. If you're suspended from financial aid, you're not eligible. I just want to make sure everyone understands that. It's a bummer, but that is unfortunately the case. When you have a financial aid question, come to us, because we know it because we do it every day. If you ask me an admissions question, I probably won't know the answer. I might have a general idea, but I'm going to send you to admissions because I don't work in admissions and I don't want to give you wrong information. So many times I hear, well, my friend, my neighbor, my counselor, this lady in my class told me that. It's not true? No, it's not true. And sometimes it's too late to fix what may have been untrue. So if you have a question, come to our office. And if you have a question, more importantly, ask. Because when everybody leaves today, we have record that you attended. So we're going to make a little mark in your file that says you attended. And you are held accountable to know this information now. You were held accountable before, but now you're really held accountable because you just sat here for an hour and had to listen. So this information, we assume that everybody understands it. And if you don't, you have to come and let us know, because we won't know. We will assume that you understand what we went over. And now you can't come back and say, well, nobody told me that. I didn't know that I was going to have to appeal. Because we're going to say, you went to a workshop, right? Well, yeah, but I didn't know. So ask as many questions as you possibly can. Because it's better to know than to not, or to guess. And I know that I didn't give out one bit of good news today. There's nothing that I said that probably made anybody happy. It's not good news. I realize that. It's frustrating. It's not butterflies and cupcakes, and I'm not saying, here's a bunch of money. I know that. But it's to inform you. Because look at it this way. Let's say you're in a position where you have to appeal. No matter how well you do this semester, you know you're going to have to appeal. Maybe your completion rate, you didn't do so well in the past. Okay? Imagine you didn't come to this workshop. And nobody said they knew what our SAP policy was. So I have to assume that nobody knows. And then you waited all summer long. You went to the beach, you rode your bike, you did all these fun things. Didn't worry about financially because you already did your FAFSA. Then you come, and you're 2 weeks into school, and you're like, I haven't got my financial aid yet. Then you come to the office, and we're like, oh, you're suspended. You didn't know? Yeah, you're not eligible. You have to appeal. Then you go to counseling, and they say, oh, sorry, you have to come back in 2 weeks because we're not doing appeals right now. So now you're a month into school. Then you go to see your counselor. Then you turn in your appeal the 4th week of school, 5th week of school. Then it takes 6 weeks to get approved. Now you're at midterms. Where did you get your books? How did you get your books? All of those things. So I realize it's not good, happy news, especially on a Friday. But it's better to be informed. I think it's better to know. Now you know what's expected of you. Now you know, oh man, if I drop a class, that might affect me. If you've already dropped a class, how's that going to affect you if you have to appeal? You have to explain that. What happened that you dropped that class. So keep in mind that this workshop is not to beat anybody over the head or to say, you have to do this and you have to do that. And no, that's not what it's about. It's about informing you. because these SAP standards exist everywhere when you go to school. When you transfer, you go to another community college, you will be held to standards. And at Cal State Channel Islands, this 70%, no way. We're at a 90% completion rate. I have to complete 90% of my units to receive financial aid. Any type of financial aid, loans, anything. So it's just so you are aware. And so maybe if you're at 6 years, by the way, the bottom of that form we didn't talk about, it tells you what you used. What your Pell Grant lifetime eligibility used is. That's how much you have already, it's gone. You've used that in your past, whether it be at Oxnard or somewhere else. If that number is in the 300s, the 400s, or the 500s, I recommend after this workshop is over, you walk right over to the financial aid office and we talk about it.